This place sure is crawling with celebrities. I'm the only person here I never heard of.
Welcome, Innovation LabCasters. This is Why Education, Episode 2, Part 2. In this two-part series, Ben Scragg begins to uncover the career trajectories of the Innovation LabCast hosts. In the first part, he interviewed Angela Gunder, and in Part 2, Ben interviews me, Dave Goodrich. These have been fun conversations. I hope you enjoy it. Why Education, Part 2, coming at you. We're rocking and rolling?
We are indeed.
Okay, so I got to ask. So last week was kind of like an avalanche week. Returning to work, it sounded like. It was kind of like wham bam.
Indeed.
How about this week?
This week has actually gotten a bit busier because
Oh, dear.
our annual EdTech conference at Ohio State, which is also known as Innovate, is next Wednesday. It's less than a week away.
Yes, it is.
I am serving as the co-chair for the conference this year, a kind of chair in residency. And next year will be a full-blooded chair. And so we've been doing a lot of prep, including a very new feature at the conference this year that we're very excited about, called Fund My Idea. And I'm primarily, I suppose, a point person for leading that session. And so it's all come together kind of at the end. I think it's fair to say that has come together kind of late. And it's because strategically we're in some ways reorganizing our grants program, which is funding this. And we've all kind of had crazy schedules. So, and the interesting thing is the folks that won have had very interesting, challenging kind of ideas. The idea is it's a small innovation grant, and we're going to help fund some people, but it's been busy. So the answer to the question is it's been busy, and when I get busy, I get a little bit scatterbrained, or I have a propensity for that in my personal life, and so I lost my eyeglasses this afternoon.
Oh, no.
So I have prescription sunglasses. So I'm sitting with my prescription sunglasses on, and my glasses they're gone. They're gone. I've spent hours looking for them tonight, and they're gone. And so I'm a little now more stressed out about the prospect of going the next week, alternating between wearing sunglasses indoors when I have to be able to see versus just winging it when I don't. So things are great.
Do you wear contacts?
I don't.
Okay.
I probably should, but I don't.
Oh, man. That's not fun.
We're gonna get there, though. I've laid my troubles upon you, and now I'm committed to victory.
But you do know, I mean, sunshades are the emblem of success and heroism and fame. So
I buy that.
It is appropriate, I think.
So it's worth asking you. You're feeling better. Would you put yourself at 81%? Are you 100%?
Yeah, like today, it kind of has gone in waves, energy-wise. But yesterday was just like, I was out all day. Just kind of like a 24-hour flu bug, nasty. Not fun. But I'm back at it, back in the game. Tripped over some bleachers a couple times, ran into a cheerleader or two, or the game analogy is not working well.
It's all right. We're just workshopping stuff here, and you ideated and came after it. Well, we had Angela and I had a great chat last night, and I'll be really interested to see how this comes together. Did you listen to our chat?
No, I haven't. I haven't yet. I want to.
Totally fine. I don't even know. Yeah, I got to give you access to that. I think we did it on my Zencaster account. We're doing this one on yours. I may just dump those files over to you and see if you want to parse through. Although Angela and I were very much enjoying some libations, and we didn't talk about really any of the things that I think we'd planned to talk about. I just started wanting to pick her brain about a couple of elements, and it got pretty deep.
Nice.
I think it's fair to say at the end that Angela was crying, and not because I made her cry.
Serious.
Yeah. So we'll just have to see how we piece that together. And I don't know if you and I are headed on that trajectory, but I will share with you where we started, which was, I was just a little bit curious about who she is and where, kind of how what her path has been and what her passion for this kind of work is, and then just kind of weaving our way through that together. And one piece in particular is the kind of the piece that's I feel like is out there for both of us, she and I, which is our doctoral programs. And so we spent some time just talking about how we both kind of have a dream for that. We both have parents who completed those and went that route, and so in some sense it feels like that is a hurdle, maybe, in a good way, right? Psychologically, like the thing to chase, or the standard that was set, or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know if any of that interests you, but I would be interested if you have a few minutes just to kind of hear what your journey's been, where you find yourself right now in this work, and maybe even education writ large, why you're passionate about it.
Yeah, it's I was one of those students that annoyed my teachers probably a lot in high school, especially because I was one of those students that asked why a lot and was kind of a you're a class clown kind of thing. Didn't do super good with grades, was more interested in learning outside of formal learning environments. But I had some teachers that were rock solid and really, really good and really inspiring. And they are the reason that I, even in high school, knew that I wanted to become a teacher. So that's what I did. I became a teacher. And then I realized, whoa, all the hell that I put my own teachers through.
Right.
And
right. There's karmic activity there.
Yes, right? Karma was definitely raining upon me. And I learned very quickly how huge and meaningful and important the work of the teacher is. And burn out pretty quick in that. But knew I was down for the count, but I knew I was going to get back up, and I have to throw my life at education because I can't help but look at it and see what it's done for me and what it does for people in terms of freeing them at the core of their being sometimes, and at the mind level. And so, yeah, it's important to me.
Well, one other question maybe related back to interested in learning, maybe as opposed to grades and some of those more formal experiences. Was there a moment or set of moments, or even an active kind of ongoing awareness of your contempt for the structures of, let's say, grading and schooling, as we would call it, while you were a high school student? Like, did you actively kind of get like, hey, I like this learning and I like doing these things, but I don't like this school business?
I've always had like an interesting relationship with formal education, and I think I probably trace it back to piano lessons. My parents wanted me to take piano lessons, so I took them. I hated them, just not fun. But they noticed, like, while I was supposed to be practicing, I was listening to stuff and, playing things by ear. And spent a lot of my time practicing just, playing things by ear and not necessarily paying attention to the music that I was supposed to be reading, kind of thing. So I have really cool parents who caught onto that real quickly and were able to somehow find like a piano teacher who like specialized in helping students tap into playing by ear and learning scales. And it was just kind of a different approach to learning music. And that really jived with how I went about it.
Opened up some doors.
It really did. Yeah. Now, looking back on
doors
it,
of learning.
Yeah, totally. Looking back on it, like I look at people who can read music and can look at a sheet of music and like make it their own in real time. Like I look at that and major jealousy. So like, so I have come to learn the extreme value of formal education, and that it is a discipline that has great value. It's just not something that I naturally gravitate toward, but it is something that I hugely value and have great respect for.
It's interesting how I'll respond that I had some very crystalline experiences in my mind toward my junior, maybe senior year of high school. They bled together because they were the same teacher, my math teacher. I took pre-calculus and calculus my junior and senior years of high school, not because I was particularly interested in them, but because they were the hardest courses the high school offered. And everyone said, if you want to get into college, you should take harder classes. And all the other kids who were generally high achieving, right? Because I thought in those kinds of terms, were taking them. And so of course I was going to take them. And then got into that class and I was always I fretted so much about my grades. And of course I was a really good student grade wise. And I ran into this class and it was really hard. And I began to really resent working hard because it was felt like it was tied to grades and competing with classmates. And, and I just remember there was one exam. Everyone in the class did really poorly on it. And it was probably halfway through my junior year. Everyone did really poorly on it. And I got a 21% on this pre-calculus, chapter exam or unit exam or something. And there were kids in the room who were in tears. And it was so bad that I just kind of instantly was like, there's no way I'm actually going to live with this. Like I've got to figure something out, right? Like I'll do something. There's no way I can let this ride, right? Like I was kind of numb to it. But there were kids crying in my class, my classmates, my friends. And I got it, right? Like I totally got it. These were other kids who had 4.0s and stuff. I didn't, but and I just remember Mr. Cunningham. This guy was awesome. He was our student council advisor and kind of at the time seemed like kind of a rebel teacher. And in one of the ways, it's one of the things that made him great. Well, I was just telling a friend about this the other day. But he kind of looked at us all and just with exasperation was just kind of like, stop it. Like, why are you so upset? Here, let's just do this. What you're upset about your grades, but you don't care about your learning. So let me just, take it. 21% now an A or whatever it was. Just take your A's. Take your A's and A minuses and B's. Are you happy now? And everyone kind of quit crying. And of course, on the inside, right, it's like, no, but of course the answer was yeah. And he just said, you haven't learned anything new. Why? None of you are cared about whether or not you learn this stuff. You care about the next thing that's coming up. And he just kind of opened up this world, right? That like my job, what this test means is that I didn't do a good enough job teaching you. You didn't do a good enough job learning. We're not done here. And we're going to go back and you're going to retake this test, all of you. And when I'm tossing this grade out so you can dry up your tears and let's get to work. And it was just kind of, no one had ever done that in 11 or 12 years of schooling. And it was this really formative moment that when I got to the point in college, I started as a journalism major where I wanted to get into that, into teaching or become an education major. It was like, I only want to do this if we don't put kids through this game, that their life is attached to their grades, and then that becomes the signifier for what matters and their worth. And so that was really powerful. So I don't know. I wonder how much that connects to the formal structures and those kinds of things. I think there's something very liberating in learning, but I think there's something even more maybe liberating in, for me anyway, in being curious about how I was learning or how I was approaching my learning. And so, yeah, I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but I was thinking about that.
It totally resonates. I mean, it was actually my math teacher too, who was actually my basketball coach all through high school too, who also brought like the passion for learning itself into the classroom, and helped also peer through the windows of the formalities of grades and understand that that's not what it's about. I don't remember like a specific moment like that where he called us out. That's really cool that your math teacher did that and that like you remember that really clearly. But it was more of just kind of like a thing that he returned to again and again, and that like the important thing is to continue learning. That was kind of his.
Yeah. I had a similar experience in college in a junior, senior year in an education course. It was a education and society course, and the instructor kicked everyone out because we all came to class unprepared. We hadn't read. And he was insulted. He made a big show about being insulted. And I think about this to this day is like he didn't do it as an exercise of power, in the sense that like he's like, I don't care about your grade. This doesn't affect your grade. You're probably all getting A's. You all do everything I say when it comes to the assignments except this one thing, which is you don't think. And that's what this is about. This is about you thinking. This is not about you pleasing me. But since you don't get that, let me share this with you. I'm very displeased. You haven't read. You haven't prepared. Get out. And guess what? Don't come back until you are. And I don't care if you don't come back. Wow. If you don't come back and you still want your A, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to do that. And I think it was. Wow. Because, it's probably pretty ballsy, right? But or seems that way now. But then it made me hungry. And this was a guy who was confrontational in a way of like disrupting my psyche, because we talked about ideas that, no, I believed in equality, and we talked about things like institutional racism and power structures and uncomfortable truths to me. That I wanted to argue with, and it was one of those first times that somebody let me wrestle with things too, and it was just like those experiences of having what I think are real education, right? I think I'm just rambling here, but it brings me to this other thing that I'm curious about. Well, let me stop there because there's another thread here, but I just wonder, for you, what has shaped? So maybe there are early piano lessons. But even let's say more recently, as you've moved into the role you're in now, like what is shaping your view of what education is and should be?
Lots of things, lots of people writing about it, thinking about it out loud, teaching about it. Lots of people I respect in the field are continuing to shape my thinking about it, but also just I'm, as you know, a part of the Hub for Innovation and Learning and Technology at MSU, and there's been I've been doing instructional design for 8 years or so now, and kind of all along there's always been this interest in changes that could be made at a larger level than myself or the teams I've been a part of. And I've been a part of amazing teams doing instructional design. But I've always kind of dreamed of there being an organization kind of that has been supported at the highest levels of leadership in an organization that really has a vision toward innovation and real meaningful change for student experiences. And just being a part of that right now is something that's really exciting. And seeing the connections that are being made already real early on is just thrilling and scary and exciting all at the same time. So right now, being in the midst of some really exciting major changes that are beginning to take place, and conversations that are starting, and projects that are emerging from that are really shaping me probably more than anything else at an experiential level.
Yeah, wow. So I'll jump back to a thought I had earlier, which was thinking about those classes. I remember college. I remember a moment in college where I was wrestling with things. There was cognitive dissonance. I was recognizing it. I was holding two different ideas in my head and evaluating them. And I always kind of do that. I think that's not probably comes across as a brag or a humble brag, but I feel like somewhere along the line it was training to try to see the best version of the argument for different sides of things, and maybe not two, maybe it's not quite so dialectic, but I remember thinking like, I changed my mind about a lot of stuff because I thought about it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if other people do that. And that's obviously, I think that's a right approach, or I wouldn't think it right. I mean, like, a thing I like to sit around and say sometimes when we're having these kind of conversations is, of course, I think what I think is right, or I would think some other thing, I guess. And that doesn't necessarily maybe mean I am right, or presume that maybe it gets a little bit relativistic for other people can certainly think what they want and often do, always do. But I guess I just get curious when I see, maybe it's our current political climate, maybe it's social media, but pick your brain. Do you think it's relevant, necessary at this point? I'm just going to ping you with this idea and then just get your opinion on it. But sometimes I feel really discouraged when I look at my role in education and feeling like, how do we help people get to a place where they think and be willing to change their mind if need be, or adopt something new? And maybe it happens all the time and I just don't look at it because the shouting heads maybe on the news networks are always the same. But yeah. I think about that all the time. It's like maybe it's very rare for people to be persuaded by others. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why you and I have thrown our lives into the world of education, because you and I probably have had rare experiences with really passionate and notable instructors who have really, and it sounds like from what you described earlier, like done some things in their instruction that were really shocking and memorable, and created a learning experience that it's hard for you to shake for the rest of your life, kind of thing. I think that involves emotions and a really good, it's such an art, isn't it? I mean, a really good sense of what I think of as maybe Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, like understanding how much you can push somebody where you don't push them so hard that you break them, but you also don't underpush them so that they're not challenged, and doing that at a class level too, like that takes some major skills.
Yeah.
Major skills. Yeah, that are oftentimes not really appreciated. And I think, a lot of times teachers instructors, faculty are oftentimes misunderstood, but underappreciated for the major work it takes to cultivate that kind of learning environment. And largely because not all teachers do that, so.
Yeah.
But you and I are fortunate that we've had experiences like that have been truly transformative to the point where we're like, we want to be a part of something like that in other people's lives too.
I think that's an interesting, and maybe this is fodder for editing or maybe it's not, but if I'm piecing together, and the other thing I will share with you is Angela and I talked for an hour. I may jump here relatively soon if that's all right with you.
I'm the same way.
In thinking about where Angela and I picked things up last night, or in thinking about where Angela and I kind of went last night in our discussion and where you and I have picked things up, I think we certainly haven't talked as much about design thinking and the process of the conference, but there has been this really interesting kind of groundwork that we're laying for maybe what education means and the power of it in our lives and why we're spending our lives kind of in this field. And I think that's one of the things Angela and I both said is, it sounds like you've been at Michigan State around the same length of time I've been at Ohio State, closer to 10 years than not. And, or at least in this field of higher ed and instructional design and et cetera. And so I think there's something very powerful that, maybe the road isn't always at these institutions, although Angela said something to me last night. She said, I know you love Ohio State. I know you love that place. And I was just thinking, as soon as she said that, I was thinking about you, and I was like, well, and Dave loves Michigan State, and then you meet Jess and so you meet people who are passionate about their institution. My boss, Corey, loves Ohio State maybe as much as anybody I've ever seen. And so it's kind of refreshing to work around people who haven't, you have an affinity. And I think institutions, there's always dangers with institutions, right? But I think colleges and schools engender that in a way that feels a little more easy to wrap your arms around maybe than, let's say, a private institution or a company, not a private institution in the sense of school, but it's just interesting to think about that, our lives are somehow geared toward this. So, I don't know if this was all just a big aside that would make for nice editing, or if it where we patch these things together, but it's interesting. The threads here.
It totally is. Yeah, I think we should definitely run with that conversation about the vocation that we find ourselves in, and why we do what we do. I think that's especially, it's something I'd love to learn more about from you and Angela, because people who are doing it for really important reasons really do stand out. So,
well, yeah, one area where it's become really important at Ohio State lately, I think, is the land grant institution mission, and Michigan State's also a land grant. And so it's just kind of one of those pieces when I think about the work that we do in K-12 and bridging higher ed and in K-12, is our impact really does reach the state. And that's one thing at Ohio State. And I don't know if you're seeing this in Michigan State also, but Ohio State's getting much more competitive in its admissions. And so we're hearing from folks around the state that saying, hey, you're a flagship state university here, and you're not admitting Ohio students because Ohio students aren't getting onto your main campus. And so we've really had to look at, how are we serving the state? And so I think the work I've been doing lately particularly on our grant, working with faculty and working with K-12 teachers and districts around the state, makes it feel like I feel back, like, oh, we're back to that mission. And in my little corner of the world is back to that mission, right? The whole university has incredible, broad reach across the state. But that piece for me in particular, do you see yourself connected to the state of Michigan in your work more broadly?
I do, and I think I can save some of that reason why for a future conversation, because it's probably going to be a little long-winded. But I do, and
Sure.
I think that would be. I think that naturally has come up in our conversations, and is definitely something we should run with talking about a lot, because as you know, there's a major divide between K-12 and higher ed. There just is. There's a wall.
Yes, sir.
There's a wall. And I know you, as a major Trump supporter, want to talk about the wall. But
I tell you what, any chance I get, particularly on this Cinco de Mayo, I think it's most fitting to talk about. So I hear what you're saying, and that's great.
no, there's a major wall, and I think that there's so much potential for K-12 and higher ed to have a symbiotic relationship, more so than there is currently, and I'd love to explore that further with you guys.
Well, that I think that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Thanks much, man. Talk to you later. Bye.